Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Georgia and I'm a knit and crochet designer. And lol, fail with my new microphone. I was just saying that I'm going to show you how to make the beautiful cabled sweater vest, and the technical difficulties are over. Now, as cables go, these are relatively easy. Like, you only have to really do one technique over and over again, and I'm going to show you that in detail throughout the pattern. So maybe if you've not done cables before and you want to dip your toe in the water, then this might be a really good project for you. But obviously you do need to know how to knit to be able to do this tutorial. I have also created a PDF downloadable pattern, like in a written version format for you if you prefer that, and I'll leave the link for that in the description below. So there will be a little bit more detail about the yarn that I used coming up, like when we very first start the tutorial, but just to get you started, you're going to need a DK weight yarn or a size 3 weight yarn. And I'll leave the yarn yardages on the screen now so that you know how much you're going to need. This is also a good time to leave the gauge on the screen as well. We all know we all know how important the gauge is, and especially when knitting. Don't come at me if your gauge is wrong and your piece turns out the wrong size. This piece is worked flat rather than in the round, so we work from the bottom up, just working back and forth. We do the front panel, the back panel, and then we seam them together. I'll leave all the sizing info on the screen for you now. Just to say, in the pattern, like the PDF version, there is a bit more info about the sizing, and there's like a schematic and things like that. But obviously this is a free resource, so there is limited information. However, if you just go off of your bust size, then you'll be fine. If you have any questions throughout the pattern, you're not sure about anything, please just comment below and I'll get back to you. And also you can comment down below anything else that you want to see from me, any other tutorials, knit or crochet. I'm open to it all and I'd love to hear your guys' suggestions. Don't forget to like the video if you do enjoy it, and subscribe if you want to stick around for more tutorials from me. But without any more babbling, let's get crafting. Okay, so these are the needles that I used for my project. I used 5mm circular needles throughout. I'll leave some other options on the screen for you as well. And this is the yarn I used. So I used a wool blend yarn, and you're going to need DK weight or size 3 yarn. So as always, we're going to start off with a slip knot, and then we're going to start off with our cast on stitches. So I will leave on the screen how many you should cast on for your size. Okay, so here is what your work should look like once you've got all those cast on stitches. And then we're going to start off with row 1. So for all sizes, you're going to knit 3 stitches and then purl 1 stitch. And you're just going to repeat that across the whole row. Knit 3 stitches and purl 1 stitch, and repeat that across the whole row. Now again, for all sizes on row 2, we are going to knit 1 stitch and then purl 3, and repeat that across. Knit 1, purl 3, and repeat that across the entire row. And that is going to start off the ribbon section that we have at the bottom of the sweater vest. Once you've done that, you're going to continue to repeat rows 1 and 2, alternating between the 2 rows until your work measures a total of 12 centimeters, and that goes for all sizes. Okay, so this is what your work should be looking like once your work measures 12 centimeters, finishing after a row 2. Now we're going to start again from row 1, and what we're going to do is just knit across the entire row, and that is for all sizes. Okay, so this is what the back of the work looks like, and we're now going on to row 2. Now row 2 is a little bit more complicated, so I am going to have to leave the instructions on the screen because it's so different for each size, and that is because of the cable pattern. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to knit a section and then purl a section, knit a section, purl a section, knit a section, purl a section, knit a section, all the way across. So for example, I'm going to start off by knitting 5, then I'm going to purl 26, knit 6, purl 26, knit 6, purl 26, and then finish off with a knit 5. But because it's going to be different for every size, that's why I'm going to leave it on the screen for you. So here is what my work looks like after I've done row 2 of the main body. Now what we're going to do is just repeat these 2 rows like we did before, alternating between the 2 rows until your work measures a total of 23 centimeters, and that is for all sizes. And then after that we're going to start the cable twists. Okay, so here's what my work is looking like once I reached 23 centimeters, and don't worry if it starts curling in on the edge, and that will sort itself out. And I'm just measuring my work to be completely sure that it is the right measurement. Okay, now because we're going on to our first cable twist, we're going to take this a little bit slower, and I'm going to do it step by step. So first off, you want to start by knitting however many it says for you to do on the screen, just a simple knit stitch. Okay, so I've knit my little section, and also guys, I did just put on the screen before that this should be a right side row. I did explain what that is. If you haven't read it, then I would just quickly go back a couple of seconds and read that. Now you're going to need your double pointed needle or your cable needle, and we're just going to start slipping some stitches. You want to insert the needle purlwise, so like you would if you were going to do a purl stitch, and I'll leave on the screen how many stitches that you need to slip depending on what size you're making. Then once you have those slip stitches, you're just going to hold them in the front of your work like this. And then we're just going to continue knitting the stitches that are on the left needle. So say you just slipped 13, you're now going to knit 13. If you just slipped 15, you're going to knit 15. It's the exact same amount of stitches as you've just slipped. Now you're going to kind of have to carry the yarn. So the working yarn is quite far down on my right needle, so I'm just going to carry the yarn all the way to the front, and you can just see on the right needle there is sort of like a floater there, like when you do Fair Isle or when you do colour changes, you're going to kind of have a little floater bit of yarn there. But yeah, if you knit those next 13, 14 or 15 stitches, however many you slipped on your needle. So I've knit my 13, and then you can still see the double pointed needle in the front holding those 13 stitches with the little floater. So now we're going to go back and knit those stitches that are on the double pointed needle or the cable needle. So you're going to slide the stitches over to the other end. You're going to drop your left needle, make sure that none of your stitches are able to fall off that left needle. And then you're just going to use that double pointed needle or the cable needle as your left needle, and you're just going to knit all 13, 14 or 15 of those stitches that are on that double pointed needle or the cable needle, whatever you're using. And it can feel a little bit awkward, but just go with it. So I'm just going to keep going until I've done all of those stitches, and I'm just going to keep the clip playing so that you can see what it looks like. And then once you have done all those stitches, obviously I'm going to show you what it should be looking like. But then after that, you're just going to knit along until the end of the row. So last stitch is there. And they are going to feel like the stitches are going to feel a little bit hard to move along your needle. It is going to feel a bit awkward, but don't worry, it will sort of correct itself and sort itself out. Everything looks a bit weird, like I've got that weird crossy over bit there, but we will come to that later on. And yeah, then you just need to knit across the rest of the row. So here is what the twist looks like from the front. Now we are going on to the wrong side, and remember that little pattern we did where we did, like, for example, knit 5, purl 26, knit 6, purl 26, knit 6, purl 26, knit 5. We're going to do that again. I will leave the instructions on the screen for you, but basically on every single wrong side row, that is the pattern that you need to do. So the pattern that we're kind of establishing is what you will do on every wrong side row. Obviously I will remind you though. Okay, so I have just got over to the bit where we've got the cable twist. I'm still on the same row doing the wrong side, but I just wanted to show you what mine looks like so that if yours looks the same and you're a bit like, oh, is it supposed to look like that? It is supposed to look like that. So you just saw there was like a little gap, and it doesn't look like normal stitches, but like I said, you just have to keep going, like even though it feels a bit weird, just keep going. And after you've done a few more centimeters of work, you'll see that it kind of does sort itself out. So once you've finished this row, you're going to carry on in the pattern that we've established, which basically means to knit across all the right side rows and then do the pattern on the wrong side rows of, knit 5, purl 26, knit 6, purl 26, knit 6, that one. You're going to repeat those 2 rows until your work measures a total of 34 centimeters. That's for all sizes. That includes the whole work that you've done so far from the very beginning, and you need to finish after you've done a wrong side row. So my total work now measures 34 centimeters, and this is what it should look like. Like I said, the twist has sorted itself out. Now we're going to do the second lot of cable twists. This time is slightly different than the first time. So you're going to knit however many stitches it says to do on the screen. Then we're going to grab our double pointed needle or the cable needle, whatever you're using, and we're going to slip the same amount of stitches that you did before, always making sure to slip them purlwise. And again, you're going to hold them in the front the same as you did before. So you can see I'm holding mine in the front, and then we're going to knit the same amount of stitches as the amount that you've just slipped. For example, I've just slipped 13 stitches. I'm now going to knit the next 13 stitches while those 13 slipped stitches are just on hold. Then, just as you did before, you're going to slide the stitches that are on the double pointed needle or the cable needle onto the other side. Use that as your left needle. Put the left needle stitches on hold for now, and you're just going to knit those 13, 14 or 15, however many you've got. Once you've done that, you can put the double pointed needle down, but you are going to need it again on this row. So now we're going to knit a chunk of stitches, and I'll leave on the screen how many you should knit for your size. So here you can see we've got one twist and then a chunk of stitches, and then now we're going to do another twist. So we're going to get our double pointed needle again, and we're going to slip the same amount that you've been doing this whole time, so either 13, 14 or 15. Again, making sure to slip them purlwise, and then we're going to hold them in the front, and it's the exact same as you did before. So you're going to hold those in the front and then knit the same amount of stitches that are still on the left needle, so 13, 14 or 15. Then go ahead and knit those 13, 14 or 15 that are on the double pointed needle or the cable needle. And then you just need to knit the remaining stitches left on the left needle, and I'll leave on the screen how many you should have, just so that you know you've done everything correct. And here is what the work looks like so far. You now need to continue to work in the pattern until your work measures 46 centimeters, ending on a wrong side row. Once you've done that, your work should be looking something like this. We're now going to do the third cable twist, which is the same as the first cable twist, but I'm not expecting you to remember exactly what to do, but I am going to go through it a little bit quicker this time. So you're going to start off by knitting however many stitches it says on the screen. Then you're going to slip purlwise onto your double pointed needle however many stitches it says on the screen, either 13, 14 or 15. You need to hold those slipped stitches in the front, and then you're going to knit the next 13, 14 or 15, however many you slipped, that's how many you're going to knit. And then you're going to knit the 13, 14 or 15 slip stitches off of that double pointed needle and back into your work. And then you're just going to knit the rest of the stitches, and I'll leave on the screen how many stitches should be left to knit, just so that you know you've done it all correctly. Once you finish that row, you need to continue to work in the established pattern until your work measures a total of 52 centimeters, finishing after a wrong side row. Here is what my work looks like at 52 centimeters, and now we're going to do our fourth and final cable twist row. So we're going to repeat the cable instructions for the second cable twist that we did, where we have the 2 cable twists. I'm going to leave all the instructions on the screen for you because I don't feel like we need to go over the footage again. After you've done that, you're going to continue in the established pattern until the work measures a total of 55 centimeters, ending after a wrong side row. Now we're going to start shaping the V-neck, so we're going to be working just on one side. So it's important that you're starting this on a right side row. You're going to knit however many stitches it says on the screen. So I've just knit my stitches and I'm going to turn my work. Then on the wrong side row, you basically need to purl all the purl stitches, knit all the garter stitches, but I'll leave the instructions on the screen for you to help you out. For the next row, this is row 3 of the neck shaping, you're going to knit along until you have 2 stitches remaining. So you can just see there the difference between the 2 stitches that are left versus the other stitches that we're leaving on hold for now. With those last 2 stitches, you're just going to knit 2 together. So you just need to insert the right needle through both stitches and knit them together like so. Then turn your work, and again you just want to purl all the purl stitches, knit all the garter stitches, but I again will leave all the information on the screen for you. Okay guys, do excuse the look. I need to come on here and give you some more information, but it is Sunday morning, I have conjunctivitis, and as you can hear from the sound of the whole video, I'm really sick, but I need to get this video out, and I want to get this video out, and I'm sick of, resting isn't helping, and so I may as well just crack on. So basically, for all sizes, on the right side rows, you're going to have to knit across until you have 2 stitches remaining, and then knit 2 stitches together. Then you turn the work, and on the wrong side rows, you just need to purl all the purl stitches and knit all the garter stitches. I do appreciate that it's hard to tell the difference, but if you look on the right side, you can see where the knit stitches are or the garter stitches are more easily, if that makes sense. Yeah, and you need to do that until you have this many stitches left on your needles. Obviously not including the stitches that we've just left on hold. That decreases 1 stitch on every right side row, and on the wrong side rows you don't do any decreases. So right side rows you knit along until there's 2 stitches left, knit 2 together, then on the wrong side rows you just purl all the purl stitches and knit all the garter stitches. So then once you've done that, there are a few extra instructions for sizes large XL and 2XL. So if you're not doing that size, either of those sizes, then you can just skip on. But if you're doing large XL or 2XL, then there are a few extra instructions that I'm going to go through with you now. Because I was making the size small, I didn't film this section, and when I got the pattern graded professionally, they added in these instructions. If I keep looking down, it's because I'm looking at the instructions on my laptop. So sizes large XL and 2XL, you're now going to do some more decreases. So on every right side row, you're going to continue to knit across until 2 stitches remain, and then knit the 2 stitches together. Then turn the work, and on the wrong side rows you're then going to do a purl 2 together. So purl 2 together is the exact same as knit 2 together, but you just insert the stitches purl wise rather than knit wise, and just knit them or purl them together. So it's exactly the same as like a purl stitch, but you just insert the right needle into the first 2 stitches rather than the first 1 stitch, and then just wrap the yarn around and purl them together. And then for the rest of the wrong side row, you then need to purl the purl stitches and knit the garter stitches. You'll carry on repeating that decrease pattern, so you're decreasing by 1 stitch on every row. So on the right side rows and the wrong side rows, you're now decreasing by 1 stitch, and you're going to continue to do that until you have this many stitches left on your needles, not including the stitches that are on hold. So just to recap, every right side row you're going to knit along until 2 stitches remain, and then knit 2 together, turn the work, purl 2 together, and then continue along the wrong side row, purling the purl stitches, knitting the garter stitches until you have however many stitches on the needles it says on the screen. I know that sounds like probably really confusing. If you do have any questions, please just leave them in the comments below and I will get back to you. But yeah, that was sort of the easiest way for me to describe it. Okay, so when you're done with your decreases, you should have something that looks like this. Obviously, it is going to be different if you're doing large XL or 2XL, but that is sort of the general gist of it. Then all that's left to do is just bind off. So I'm just doing a normal bind off method, knit the first 2 stitches, and then slip the first stitch over the second one, knit 1 stitch, and like slip it over and just do a normal bind off technique just for this shoulder. And then we're going to go on to the other side of the neckline. So here's what mine looks like, and then I'm just going to cut the yarn and fasten that into place. And here is roughly what yours should look like. Obviously, we've still got the stitches on hold on the needles, which we are about to work on. And you should have a nice steady V-neck shape starting on the right side. And if it's sort of starting to be pulled in where the twists are, like on the edge, you can see that I'm trying to sort of straighten it all out. Don't worry about that. It's completely normal and will sort itself out. Okay, so you're going to grab your working yarn, and we need to start the left shoulder on the inside. So where the center of the V-neck is going to be, that is where we're going to start. Obviously, this side is going to be very similar to the last side, so I am going to go through it a bit more speedily than before, but you're just going to start off by knitting across. So again, we've started in the middle of the sweater vest where the center of the V-neck is going to be. I've just attached my working yarn, and I'm just going to knit across every stitch that is left on my needles. Now, because we're going onto the wrong side row, we are going to start that sort of knit purl pattern again. So I'm going to leave the instructions for that on the screen. Now for row 3, we're going to do decrease row. So you're going to slip the first stitch, slip the second stitch, make sure you do that knitwise, and then insert the left needle into those 2 stitches, and then just knit them as normal, and that is 1 slip slip knit. You will have decreased by 1 stitch. I am going to just show you it one more time. So again, this is called a slip slip knit. You're going to slip, slip, insert the left needle. You want to go into the front of those 2 stitches, wrap the yarn around, and then knit them together. That's 1 decrease. And then you're just going to knit across the rest of the row. After that, when you get to the wrong side row, again, you're just going to purl all the purl stitches and knit all the garter stitches. Okay, so this time, every right side row, you're going to do slip, slip, knit, and then knit all the way across. And then every wrong side row, you're just going to purl all the purls and knit all the garter stitches. So just like you did before, it's just that the decrease is slightly different, because rather than knitting to the end and then knit 2 together, you're going to slip, slip, knit, and then knit to the end of the row. You want to repeat that until you have however many stitches left on your needles that it says on the screen. And then obviously again, for sizes large, XL and 2XL, there will be further instructions. So once you've done that, then if you're making sizes extra small, small or medium, you can just skip this part. But if you're making sizes large, extra large or 2XL, then on all the right side rows, you're going to continue with slip, slip, knit, and then knit across. And then on all wrong side rows, you need to knit all the garter stitches, purl all the purl stitches, and then at the end of the row, so when you've got 2 stitches left or 2 stitches remaining on that row, you then purl 2 together. So all right side rows are slip, slip, knit, then knit to the end, you turn your work, you knit the garter stitches, you purl the purl stitches. Remember, you can look on the right side if you get confused. And then the last 2 stitches on the wrong side rows are purl 2 together, and you need to repeat that until you have however many stitches it says on the screen left on your needles. So you will be decreasing by 1 stitch on every single row. So here's what mine looks like, and all that's left to do is just bind off those stitches. Okay, so once you've done the front panel, we now need to do the back panel. Now the ribbon is the exact same as the start, so I'll leave your cast on stitches on the screen now. Knit 3, purl 1 on the right side rows, and then on the next row you'll knit 1, purl 3, and that's the wrong side row, and then you'll just repeat those 2 rows, alternating between the 2 until your work measures a total of 12 centimeters. After that, all right side rows, you just knit across, and then all wrong side rows, I will leave the instructions on the screen. You're going to repeat those 2 rows until your work measures however many centimeters it says on the screen for your size. It's a lot simpler because there are no twisted cables on this section, and I feel like you have all the information you need rather than me going through every single little step. Again, if you have any questions, do let me know and I'll get back to you. Okay, so the back panel is designed to be longer than the front panel, so don't be alarmed if you're thinking, it's going to be too long. We're now going to separate for the shoulders and do some neck shaping. So you're going to knit however many stitches it says on the screen. So I've got my section of knitted stitches, and now we're going to do some bind off stitches. So to begin your bind off stitches, you always have to start off by knitting the first 2. Then you bind off 1 stitch. and that's 1 stitch bound off. And I'll leave on the screen how many stitches you need to bind off. So I've got my bind off stitches in the middle, and then you just need to knit the rest of the stitches that are left on the left hand needle, and it should be completely even on each side, so you should have the same amount of stitches on either side of the bound off stitches. So your work should be looking a little something like this. These stitches are just going to stay where they are for now. The bind off stitches are just there in the middle, and then we're going to work over on this side for now. So turn your work. We're going to start off by knitting a chunk of stitches. I'll leave how many you need to knit on the screen, and then you'll just purl the rest of the stitches. Then you're going to turn your work, and I'm just using my right needle. The other stitches are still just chilling out there on the cable. We're going to do a slip, slip, knit, and then we're going to knit across the rest of the row. So I'm just showing you the slip, slip, knit process again there if you need reminding, and that is 1 stitch decreased. Once you've done that, you're going to repeat those 2 rows, however many more times it says for you to repeat those on the screen. Once you've finished that, this is how many stitches should be left on your needles, obviously not including the stitches that are currently on hold. So sizes large, extra large and 2XL have some extra decreasing to do. On the wrong side rows, you're going to continue as you were, but when you get to the last 2 stitches, you're going to purl 2 together. And then the right side rows are the same. You're going to slip, slip, knit, and then knit across. So you're now decreasing on every single row, and you want to repeat those 2 rows until you have a total of however many stitches left on your needles that it says on the screen. Okay, so you can see that we've got our decrease section all finished, and all that is left to do is bind off, but you're going to bind off in purl stitches this time. To bind off in purl stitches, it's the exact same, but rather than knitting the stitches and then binding them off, you just purl the stitches and bind them off. So you're going to cut the yarn and just fasten that into place. Here is roughly what your shoulder shaping should look like. And now we're going to work on the other side. You want to have the wrong side facing, and we're going to start from the inside edge of the sweater vest, so where the neck will be. Grab your working yarn. We're going to purl along until you have this many stitches remaining, and then those remaining stitches you're going to knit those. Now onto the right side, so you turn your work, you're going to knit along until 2 stitches are left, and then you're going to knit those last 2 stitches together, and that is going to decrease by 1 stitch. You need to repeat those 2 rows until you have this many stitches left on your needles. Like before, sizes large, extra large and 2XL need to do some extra decreasing. We're going to start decreasing on every row. So now, on the wrong side, you're going to purl 2 together, purl across until you have this many stitches left, and then you're going to knit those last remaining stitches. Then you turn the work, and on the right side you're going to knit across until the last 2 stitches and then slip, slip, knit. And you want to repeat those 2 rows until you have this many stitches left on the needles. After you've done that, all sizes need to bind off in purl stitches. Okay, so now we're getting to the seaming section. So here's what your back panel should look like. Obviously those little edges there are curling inwards, but you get the gist. So if you lay the back panel down on the floor or on a surface with the right side facing upwards like I've done mine, and then get your front panel and you're just going to lay it down on top of the back panel with the wrong side facing upwards. Try and line it up the best that you can. Obviously, the back panel is slightly longer than the front panel, but it will all become apparent. The most important part is just to make sure that the bottom hems are even and lined up. We're going to seam up the sides, starting from the bottom and working our way up. So if you grab a measuring tape and you need to measure from the bottom hem upwards this many centimetres, and then you'll just want to place a stitch marker at the place where you've measured. Make sure with the stitch marker you're joining the front and the back panels together, and then all we're going to do is start from the bottom hem and close up this gap. So work your way up towards the stitch marker using your yarn needle and some yarn and your preferred hand sewing method. Okay, so you can see here I've got my stitch marker joining my front and my back panel together. I'm going to work my way down to the bottom hem, and I'm just going to sort of join those together so that they line up nicely. And obviously the edges are curling in, so you just need to make sure that everything's lined up, everything is straight. I always say take your time on this bit because a good seam makes all the difference. Like a bad seam makes it look like a dodgy handmade job. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. And obviously where you've got the cable twists, it is a little bit more sort of like fiddly, but it all does sort itself out. So start off with your yarn needle and just thread your yarn through the eye. And then I'm literally just going to go into like the cornermost stitch in the back panel, the cornermost stitch in the front panel, pull the yarn through, and then go into the next stitch up, through the back panel, through the front panel, pull, and literally just keep doing that, working your way up to that stitch marker. One thing to pay attention to is that you really want the ribbon to line up. So here's like where the ribbon ends, and then we go into the stockinette stitch. You really need those to line up so that it doesn't look wonky when you're wearing it on the side. So focus on that bit first, and then obviously work your way up towards the stitch marker, and just keep checking your work as you go to make sure that it's not wonky or you haven't accidentally done more stitches on the back panel versus the front panel or vice versa. And also you can see I'm getting a bit tangled in my yarn, so just be aware of that as well. Once you have reached your stitch marker, you just need to secure your yarn into place, and then you just need to do the exact same again on the other side. So follow the same process, lay the work flat from the bottom hem, measure upwards. It was 48 or 50 centimeters depending on the size, and then place your stitch marker, start from the bottom and just seam up that side gap. So here is what it looks like from the wrong side. You can see the cable is all straight and sorted itself out, and then from here you just need to cut the yarn and fasten it into place. Okay, so now we need to join together the shoulder section. So you still want to have the wrong side facing out, and you're just going to line up these two sections, and then you just want to line up the corners, and you can use a stitch mark to join them together if you would find that easier. And all we're going to do is just close up this gap the exact same way that we did for the side seams. So grab your yarn and your yarn needle, insert the needle into the back panel in the cornermost stitch and then the front panel, pull the yarn through and work your way across each stitch until you reach the other corner. Then you need to cut the yarn, fasten it into place, and then do the exact same thing again on the other shoulder. So here is what mine is looking like with all the seaming complete. So what you need to do is find the innermost stitch of the V-neck. So the stitch that would be right in the center of the V-neck, that's where we're going to start the ribbon around the neckline. Either using your circular needles or double pointed needles, we're going to start picking up some stitches. So again, like I said, starting from that very innermost stitch, insert your yarn and pick up your first stitch. Now I'm going to leave how many stitches you need to pick up on the screen, but basically you need to work your way around from that innermost stitch up the V-neck on the left side as you're looking at the sweater vest, round the back of the neck, and then back down on the right side back to that innermost stitch. And to pick up stitches, you're just inserting your needle into the next stitch, wrap the yarn around, and then you pull up almost like you're knitting a stitch, but you're just creating new ones. Also, if you are using circular needles and your cable is a bit long, then I will be showing you the magic loop technique because that's what I did. Then I just thought I'd show you because I'm halfway through picking up my stitches. So I've gone from that innermost stitch up the left side, and then I'm now working my way around the back, and I'm about halfway across the back, and then I'm just going to continue to work my way around the back and then back down the left side until I get to that innermost stitch again. So I've picked up all of my stitches, and I should have said before that you don't actually want to go into that last stitch, like the one that you started in. So that's the one I started in. The one next to it is the one that I've ended in. So now we actually need to turn our work. We're not working in the round. So you want to have effectively the wrong side facing. And I've just pulled out my right needle so that there's cable exposed there, which is what you'll need to do if your cable is too long. And then I'm just going to start knitting the stitches as normal, like if we were just working back and forth, because that is technically what we're doing. We're going to start off by doing 2 purl stitches. Take the yarn to the back and then do 2 knit stitches, bring the yarn back round to the front, 2 purl stitches, bring the yarn back round to the back, 2 knit stitches, and you're going to repeat that all the way. I was going to say around. It feels like it's around, but it's actually across because we're not working in the round, but you get what I mean. You need to do that around the neckline until you get back to where you started from when you were picking up your stitches in that innermost stitch. With the magic loop technique, you basically have to pull out the cable sort of like midway through where you're working. So I will now work the stitches on my left needle, and when I've worked them, I'll then pull that cable out again in the middle, sort of roughly, of however many stitches I've got, if that makes sense. But I will leave a little link in the description below to a really good magic loop video. That is how I learned how to do the magic loop technique. So if you need that, feel free to go and have a look. So that was row 1 completed of the v-neck, and so you need to turn your work around again and have the right side facing for row 2, and all you need to do is repeat row 1 until you have a total of 6 rows for the v-neck, or you can do more or less if you want to. So we've already done row 1 and now we're working on row 2. When you've done those 6 rows, this is what your work should be looking like. A nice 2x2 ribbon, and then you should have the wrong side facing to do your binding off. So what you need to do is bind off in the pattern. So purl every purl stitch, knit every knit stitch, and bind off in that way. And I'll just leave the clip playing so you can see an example of that. But basically, yeah, you knit all the stitches that you knit previously and purl all the stitches that you purled previously, and then just bind off each stitch and make your way around the v-neck. After that, there's only one more step to go. Okay, so all my stitches are bound off. I'm going to cut the yarn and fasten that into place, but obviously there is a little gap at the innermost part of the v-neck, so now we're going to sort that out. Okay, so we're going to join up these 2 edges here, but we're not just going to sew them together, we're actually going to cross them over. So the part with the tail, you're going to tuck that one behind and bring the other edge over in front. And then you can see it looks much more like a traditional v-neck than, you know, if we were to just sew up the 2 edges together. You can use a stitch marker to hold this in place if you want to, just while you get yourself prepared. So rather than getting a new piece of yarn, I'm just using the tail that we just created when we cut the yarn, when we finished binding off. I'm going to tuck that one behind, so the side with the tail is the side that's going to go behind, and then I'm really sorry you can't really see because my hand is in the way, but I just pushed the needle through to the other side. So yeah, I'm sort of joining the underneath section first. Okay, so I've pretty much joined the underneath section, but we still need to pull the right side across and over onto the left side. I'm actually just going to skip this bit because you can't really see what's happening because of my hands. So hopefully now you can kind of see that I've worked my way along the right edge of the V-neck and overlapped it over the top of the left side, and I'm just continuing to join that there, and I'm just making sure that there's no gaps or holes. So you know, you can go over it as many times as you want. I actually did go over mine just a few times just to make sure that it's completely secure. So I'm just going to do a couple more stitches and I'm just going to let it play out so that you can see as best as you can and the most that you can. And then this is what it should be looking like once you're all done with that. And you can clearly see the overlapping of the V-neck. And that is it, guys. Well done for making the beautiful sweater vest if you got all the way to the end. It actually also looks really nice with no sleeves or no shirt underneath. This is just the way I like to wear it, but you can play around with it. Like if you want to wear it bare underneath, like if I was going out for a night out, kind of like for drinks and dinner, then I'd probably wear some wet look leather leggings and just the vest without anything else underneath, and I think that would also look really cute, especially if you made a black one. That would be so nice. Don't forget to tag me on socials. I'd love to see your finished pieces. Please like the video if you did enjoy it. It really helps push my videos out there, and subscribe if you want to stick around for more tutorials from me. But that's it from me, guys. So enjoy the rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this.